Hello, and thank you for joining me today. Today, I wanted to talk about a four-letter word. While those four letters are small, with regards to the numerical representation of being only four, this word can have a tremendous impact on our lives, and that word is doubt. Some synonyms or definition for doubt can include disbelief, mistrust, hesitation, etc. And up until now, what we've really spoken about is how do we deal with certain situations in the course of our day to day lives. And I wanted to continue on that vein, but just go over just a little bit and begin to touch on how these can also impact us physically. So keeping that in mind, sometimes we can ask God for things, be it physical healing, be it things in our lives, whatever it may be that we've asked Him for. And He has answered us and He has told us, yes, I'm going to do that. But we pray and we wait and we wait and we pray. And as time goes on, we seem to think about, well, when is this going to happen? I know in my own life, I had prayed for something for over 20 years and waiting for it to come in fruition or to manifest itself in the earth realm. And when it finally did, it came through tremendously. But for lack of not wanting to get ahead of myself, let me digress for a moment. So we pray for these things and we wait for them and we wait. And as we wait, we can become depressed or discouraged or begin to lose sight of the vision of what God has said He promised to give us. And one thing that helped me was 2 Peter 3:8, which says that 1,000 years to God is but one day. And I remember one day being so discouraged, if you will, and frustrated of waiting for this thing to come into fruition. And I said, well, let me do the math. And when I did the math and to figure out how much time would pass that we thought passed versus what God thought passed, I felt like a toddler. Mommy, can I have it now? Mommy, can I have it now? And that began to increase my faith and say, Alita, you know what? You have to wait. If He's promised to you, He will not lie. And that I found very helpful. And then I sat back and I thought about the milestones, and I began to think about at those times in my life, when I wanted something, or I waited for something, or I needed something, and I asked God for it, and He told me, yes, I'm going to give it to you. Not one time had He failed me. Not one time. And this along with Jeremiah 29:11, saying that, you know what? God tells us, you don't know the plans that I have for your life. But that also encouraged me and allowed me to hang on for, as I said earlier, 20 years, to wait for God to answer the prayer that He said He was going to answer. He would often remind me of Sarah and how He promised Sarah a child who was way past childbearing age, but He never went back on His promise. And that's the same thing. He's the same God now as He was then and as He will always be. So if He's kept His promises all these times, He will continue to do so for us. So what do? Then we begin to bombard heaven with those things that we know to be true, that the enemy will not rob us of our destinies, because God has established who we are before the foundation of the world. He knew who we were, and He established us to do what He wanted us to do in the earth realm. So as we continue to bombard heaven, we continue to remind ourselves and that He will not only not destroy or ruin or negate those things that God has promised us, but He will not do so for our families. He will not do so for our physical bodies. And we will continue to forge ahead, remembering what God has promised us, refusing to turn around and refusing to give up and refusing to quit and refusing to allow doubt to enter in. Because as we spoke in the beginning of this discussion, we talked about doubt being mistrust or distrust or a lack of faith. And we know that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. We also know that without faith, it is impossible for us to please God. So that is the part that the enemy will try to attack, to get us to start to doubt. And we need to move past that with all we have within us, to remember to never allow doubt to drown out our faith. Until next time, may the peace that surpasses all understanding guard your hearts and minds. Shalom.